understanding, from where I know of God and the things that He's allowed for me to see. I'll be so bold as to say this in public. I know the face of God. He has blessed me in such a way as to be in His presence, and because of that, He's allowed for me to become who I am today. Now, along with that, I have seen God create. I've seen Him, bring something from nothing. He literally called on something and it became right before my eyes. Not only that, but I've seen other worldly places with Him. I've been to heaven. I've been to the first, second, and third heaven. I have transcended space and time with God and Jesus and with the Holy Spirit. I have been face to face with the Holy Trinity. And with that being said, that's what these experiences of Once Upon a Transcendent Realm are about. They're about these encounters, but they're also about the experiences which led up to these encounters. They are a non-fiction, truthful viewpoint of these supernatural, otherworldly things that we are all a part of. In fact, I'll be so bold as to say the only way that this thing has happened is because of God's grace. God is the one that does all things. I am simply in a part of these things that God is doing for my life, and because of that, we're moving forward together doing all these things. When I first began these experiences, I didn't understand what they were really about. I only knew that there was something otherworldly that was happening to me. It took me quite a few years to be able to understand that they were first supernatural in their way, and then it took me several more years to start being able to comprehend the lessons that were being revealed to me. Now, the meditational aspects of the experiences that I've been a part of, they literally led me to enlightenment. But it took me a couple of years to be able to learn how to breathe, to learn how to be still, to learn how to listen, but then how to find balance. Now, the balance that I found that I write about is what every spiritual seeker truly is looking for. It's enlightenment. It leads to enlightenment. Now, within this book, or the steps that allowed for enlightenment to be realized, but it's not just the spiritual insight and viewpoint and knowledge that happens within enlightenment. It is literally a blue-white light that just shines out that reaches other worldly places. Out-of-body experiences become, discernible. Not only that, but it's the kinds of things that happen supernaturally after enlightenment that I hope that we start to understand, because most people, let's talk about Buddhism for a minute, that are seeking spiritual enlightenment, they think, wow, I just got to get there. Well, you know what? That's one step of where we're really capable of getting to. So, along with these things that I've found within these experiences are spiritual insights, yes, but merely steps to these types of oneness that is called by all of us to literally reach. And if we really look carefully at history, this kinds of information was showed and revealed to us by Jesus, which again was brought forth by God our Father. So these steps are paths to the way that each of us are supposed to be living in terms of who we are as God's children. Most people in their confinement are stuck, or they're within themselves, or they are limited to their own, minimal knowledge. So when you think about that, you have to be really closed in to stay in shame or guilt or apathy. You have to be so unaware of other things to stay there. When other hints of things start becoming more, let's say, needful within one's life, like you start moving through different ways, like you start experiencing desire or anger, or you move past that, and then to get past that you start experiencing like courage, right? Then you look for the willingness to start evolving into something else. But then you have to come to terms with all these different things. So then you start learning acceptance. And then after you get to the acceptance part, you start looking for understanding and reasoning. And then once you start finding all this stuff starts equaling up to this greater thing, that's when love becomes opened up to it. And then on the other side of love is realizing that there is that joy. And then once you find all that stuff, you literally find peace. And as you move past that, that's where enlightenment really is. Now, this is a good way to kind of gauge how that does work, but literally when you find enlightenment, it's not just those experiences that we just spoke about. It's literally a kind of state of being. It's literally a feeling that just all comes together of these supernatural, spiritual aspects of who we all are that start to shine And that's that bright light again that comes from God. And it's like unlocking the safe that we have been, first born into, that reveals who our true being really is, and that's our spirit. And I think the highest way of being literally on earth is in that enlightened state. And when you do that, then that's when finding the oneness that I found with God is truly attainable. If you can't see any of this stuff, okay, there's so much pride and ego, and a person has themselves so high up within themselves that sometimes they can't even recognize any of this stuff. They say they know love, or they say that they know peace or happiness or joy, but it's really momentarily. It's not a long, sustainable type of experience. It's more of, well, I've had a glimpse of that before in my life, so they think that they know it. A true person who knows love lives in it, because there's no other place that they want to live. Now, for any person who has experienced shame or guilt or apathy, you have to first recognize that in order to get to that point, you have to be lowered in your expression or your perceptions of yourself. So a lot of times a self-centered person has their ego so high up above that they can't even see this stuff. Now, when I went through the experiences from my past, in order to be able to come to an understanding of where I was going, God himself had to abase me. He had to bring me down, and my viewpoint of understanding, it's called abasement. So when he checked me, he basically allowed for me to feel ashamed of the things that I had done. And it was that sense of guilt that I had towards doing all those things wrong that allowed for me to finally go, wow, you know what? I was this kind of person doing those kinds of things. I don't want to be that way anymore. What is it that I need to be doing? And then I had to take an inventory of the kind of person that I was at that time. And I had to come to terms with that. Wow, I did these things. I'm sorry. What do I have to do to not do them anymore? And then I looked, and God says, well, that's easy. Just don't do them. Let me show you what to do now. And that's when he started teaching me how to be a righteous person. Now, we're all expected to be righteous people, but in order for us to do that, we have to know who we are. Then we have to become selfless, and in order to become selfless, you've got to go through these steps that we're talking about on the way to enlightenment. So yeah, it's a great path for everyone. Some people are at different stages of their understanding. Some people are further along, than other people. It might take them a lot faster to get there, but the idea is to start searching for where it is that we're really expected to be, because we're all on our way home, whether we understand this or not. I was searching for the answers. I was searching for truth. I was searching for understanding. I was searching to push the limits of what I was capable of, and it turns out that I was capable of everything. And so are you, and so is everybody. We're capable of everything. The only thing is that we can't do it by ourselves. We have to come to that terms that we can't do anything really without God, without his approval, without his blessing. If you don't believe me, try to do something without him and see how long that lasts. Whether you are a kind of person that has no faith, or you have all the faith in the world, when you try to do something without God, it just will not last. That's the way the world works. This is his world. He's created it this way. We have to do things with him in order for it to grow, for it to move forward, for it to prosper, for it to be beneficial. We have to do these things with him, because he's the one that does them. So that's really the biggest part of who we are as people. We're doing these things in this world. Yeah, we have the ability, and that's wonderful. But in order for us to really get where we're going, we have to do that kind of stuff with him. Now, when you talk about people that are challenged with being alive, the ones that are in a hurry to leave this world, whether it's from suicide or looking for a way to do themselves in, I would first start looking at why. Because a lot of people are misled these days. When I say misled, now we understand that God our Father is the creator, and he's the one that gives us the things that we have. Now, on the other end of that is that we have an adversary that challenges us, that doesn't want us to succeed, that wants to separate us from that gift of having everything. And because of that, sometimes it misleads people. Sometimes they push us in a way that pushes us into fear or doubt, or tries to break that trust that we're supposed to keep with our Father, with God. And when doing that kind of stuff, sometimes we get pushed into drugs, or sometimes we get pushed into sex or gambling, or the kinds of things that lead to a self-destructive kind of behavior, like suicide. Take that for example. You got people trying to get out of this life when they're not even begun figuring out what it's about. It's about having everything and doing all these wonderful things. Yes, it's challenging and it's hard and it's difficult, but it's also wonderful and loving and incredible, and we get to do all these great things. The idea, though, is that when you have no focus on love and all you're feeling is fear, that's where being misled comes into play. We have to stay focused or regain that focus back onto God in order for us to truly grasp what life is about. One of the best things that we can do is be the example for them, or pray for them and hope that God is going to continue to give them what they need in order for them to stay here and not be running out of this world.